Welcome to Light Overheat with Professor David Yamani. This week I want to talk about my Sociology of Guns students' reflections on their field trip to the gun range. Continuing apologies for my voice. I have been sick, but again, pressing forward with these videos, which I think are really important because the field trip I take my students on to the gun range as part of my Sociology of Guns course is really one of the most important things I do educationally all year. As a recap, 2 weeks ago, I gave an overview of what was going to happen at the range. Last week, I talked a little bit about the big picture of what we did at the range. Everybody left the range with the same number of holes that they came with, so it was a success in that regard. And this week, I want to share a little bit about my students' reflections on the range field trip, because the first thing we do in class is go to the range before we ever meet in a classroom on campus. And then also before we meet for the first time as a class on campus, students have to write a 500-word reflection on their gun range experience. And this is really meant to get them to sort of bring to the level of consciousness some of their pre-existing views of guns and how the experience of shooting guns fits into that. So we sit down in class for the first time and we're doing introductions. I ask the students to take an index card and to write the one word that best summarizes or that first comes to mind that summarizes the field trip experience. So let me just read what these 16 students said. So 4 students, in fact, put the word fun. 2 students said exhilarating, and then the 10 other students had different words that they associated with the experience, including cathartic, loud, safe, controlled, humbling, power, cool, informative, thrilling, and unique. And so I've said before many times that my goal in taking students to the range isn't to convert them to being pro-gun or pro-Second Amendment, to get them to become gun owners, but really just to give them an opportunity in a safe and controlled environment to experience shooting guns as an experiential basis for our conversations about guns and gun ownership, gun culture, and the negative outcomes that we see with guns as we work our way through the class. So in addition to this summary of the range reflections that my students wrote, I'll also be posting some of those reflections to my Gun Curious blog. You can find the link to that in the show notes. These are historically some of the more widely read posts on my site, and they really give some good insights into the way students are processing this experience. And a lot of the students, as I said last week, come into this range experience with very little to no shooting experience. So 7 of the students had never shot before, 2 students had shot just 1 time before, and only 4 of the students had really shot on any kind of regular basis, but I wouldn't even say they're regular shooters, I would say they're kind of occasional shooters. But a lot of the students bring with them to the class a lot of negative associations with guns and the positive experience that they tend to have at the range. And not everybody has a 100% positive experience, but most of them, as the one-word reflection suggested, have a generally positive experience, creates some cognitive dissonance or some feeling kind of internal conflict, right? So one student said that the experience had them sitting in a weird place. And I say, this is perfect. This is one of the reasons why we do the field trip. This is one of the reasons I have them reflect on the field trip before we get down to dealing with the scholarship of guns, because those feelings of dissonance, those feelings of discomfort, those feelings of internal conflict, of sitting in a weird place, are the basis for learning, right? If people are not moved in any way out of their comfort zone experientially, kind of intuitively, in their bodies, as one of the students said. It was an embodied experience, right? Then they're not as likely to be receptive to new information. We have all sorts of cognitive biases that we know about, and I can't overcome all of those cognitive biases in the course of a single semester, but this experience does create conditions under which students can start to confront some of their own recognized and unrecognized biases. The other thing that kind of internal conflict highlights for the students is that guns are not a single reality in American society. Right? Guns are not all bad. Guns are not all good. There's a lot of good involved in guns. There's a lot of normality involved in guns, and this is the starting point I take in the class. But we also in the class work towards those negative outcomes: suicide, homicide, mass shootings, political division. And so, again, this range experience really sets them up to understand in an experiential and an embodied way the various realities of guns, what we might call the various social lives of guns in the United States. So this is the purpose of the range field trip. These are across the board some of the best and most reflective field trip essays that I've read in the 9 years I've been doing this. And so I'm really looking forward to moving on with this class, building on this experience. I appreciate your attention to this series of videos on my range field trip. If you think there's something of value in these videos, please like and share them so that I can reach people who are outside of my pre-existing social networks. And also, please share your thoughts on the field trip experience in the comments.